should we kick it off or wait a
No,
little
we're,
bit?
we're, we're gonna we're gonna kick it off, and I'm Jay Kingley. I am the co-founder, CEO of Centricity. We are the host today. We have got a great speaker, Ilya Lipovich, and Ilya is a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience in the fields of operation and finance. But for the last 6 years, he's been leading a custom software development company called Cidersoft in the San Francisco Bay Area with an impressive list of current and past clients. The company is a leading solutions provider with over 1,000 development and design resources. Now, right before I turn it over to Ilya, what I'd like everybody to do is I'd like you, if you can turn on your video for a sec, please turn on your video. I want you to look straight in the camera because Ilya wants to put this little picture in on his mantle, right? So on the count of three, we're going to give a smile to make mama proud. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Awesome. Thank you, thank you. All right, and with that, I am going to turn it over to our guest speaker, Ilya.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Let me share my screen, everybody. Let's see. There we go. Can everybody see the screen?
Perfect.
Okay, great. I want to see if I can get rid of the videos. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining. I've had the privilege of being part of the Centricity Network for, I want to say, about it's coming up close to a year. Great organization led by Mr. Kingley. And there are some folks here that are members as well. Others are new, so welcome. In this presentation, during the next 45 minutes or so, I'd like to cover how my company, Cidersoft, has reached a recurring roughly $1 million in revenues and the approach that we took in that. Mostly, this approach is targeted at looking at what the customer's buy cycle is and aligning your sales funnel to that. All right. So my career spans roughly 20 plus years of, as Jay said, financial and operations management, with experience of working in both startups and large enterprise environments. And as I said, the goal of this talk is to go through one of the paths, and I want to stress one of the paths we choose in lead generation, and why we believe it should be one of the key selling tools in your lead gen tool belt. Before I go into that, though, here's why I started and got into software development. Around 2015, I was managing a US team of a European game development firm, Game Insight. For those into games, they were like the European equivalent of Zynga, if you remember game Farmville. During that time, my network exponentially grew, and many of these connections were getting their startups funded and asked me for advice in development, project management, and other aspects of running an early stage startup. They were having overseas firms give quotes to build their apps, but I realized that these quotes weren't really competitive and usually had no project management baked in. So after seeing about a dozen of these, I realized that leveraging my development connections abroad, I could probably do this much better than most of the firms out there. So Cider began doing websites, and after a few years, really after a few short years, grew into mobile apps and customer relationship management platforms. So some of these you may remember called CRMs, sort of like Salesforce. In the early years of the company, we primarily leveraged our network which we had built from the beginning of our careers up until around 2015. Then, about a year ago, we took a deeper look into our CRM system. And I just want to stress, this was from 2015 and onwards. And last year during the pandemic, we took a look into our CRM system to examine past deal sizes, time to close, customer types, and customer retention. This led us to some interesting conclusions and changes in our outbound go-to-market strategy. So one big thing I kept hearing from entrepreneurs is that they were not using a full-fledged CRM system. And it took time, a lot of time, to put stuff into it. One note, if you're not using one, you're probably wasting a lot of your own time. Please kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Look, I realize that nobody likes entering data, but you shouldn't stress, as there are a lot of CRMs these days that do most of the data entry for you. We, for one, currently use Pipedrive and actually have gone through a few different types of CRM systems throughout the years. These included HubSpot, SharpSpring, and others. The smallest version of that, meaning Pipedrive, is about $100 per year for a single seat. So it's really not expensive. And by the way, we have a promo code if you want a few months for free. I want to stress right away, my company is not affiliated with Pipedrive. We just use it. We just have some connections with these promo codes. So now we'll do a poll of who uses a CRM and which one. Jay, if you will.
Okay, the poll is up. If everybody could vote. We're halfway there, guys. Let's get the last four of you, last three of you. Last two of you, we got 10 seconds left. One more to go, and we're all done. Awesome. Here we go. Oh, yeah.
Well, this is great. So what this is telling us is that CyberSoft is in good company with the same type of CRMs everybody is using. And there are quite a few reasons for that, and we can discuss that in some of our roundtables. But Jay, thanks for that. This was very helpful.
Great.
All right, cool. All right, so let's get into the important part of this talk. And this will take a little bit of time, so just kind of bear with me. Here's how to figure out your customer's buy cycle. These are the steps that companies usually take when they want to buy things. The slide that you're seeing was pulled from the internet. And yes, there is a typo in the heading. It's not my fault, I promise. But the reason we really wanted to use the slide, even though there is that typo, it's a quite good one, and it goes into fairly high level of detail, but it's something that you can take away and print it and use it in the future. So typically, your customer's buy cycle has these roughly 5 to 6 phases. The most common phase of the buy cycles are awareness, consideration, intent, purchase, and repurchase. Repurchase also kind of equates to renewal in some cases. You just need to ask your customer which one they're in. And what that sort of sounds like is, let's say, hey, Jason, thanks for meeting with us today. Typically, when a company like yours meets with us, it's because they're in some phase of their buy cycle. Often the first phase is awareness. What that is when they're realizing they may or may not have a problem, or a second phase, consideration. When they realize they have a defined problem, but they're considering multiple types of solutions and don't have a clear intent to solve in one way. Some teams come to us when they're at intent, as in we intend to have an iPhone app made. So the question is going to be, where is your client at? So when customers come to meet with you, you'll want to check that they bring you about 3 or 4 things. First one is a clear list of questions about products and services. Sometimes this can be something like a PRD or an RFP. RFPs are pretty popular in government contracting, but sometimes people do want to share and call it an RFP, request for pricing, or PRD, product requirements document. Although it can be sometimes an uncomfortable one to ask, but you will want to discuss the project budget at some point. This can yield some really interesting information, such as how it is composed and at which phase you can be slotted in. Third is, do your customers tell you that they're trying to justify a need for their project? And do you know the name of the 6 or 7 people typically needed in order to gain consensus to move the project forward? There's actually a name for the most powerful person in the deal you're working on. It's the yes to all no's and the no to all yeses. And usually it's called an executive sponsor. So the question is, do your customers actually allow you to work directly with that individual or set of individuals? Or do they carefully hide those people from you? So fourth is marketing. Your competitors are likely marketing from the seller's perspective. This is really important. You're competing against those that are marketing from the seller's perspective, their own. What you should really be doing is go from the buyer's perspective. Because buyers are selfish and only think about themselves. This is quite important because this will give you a lot of bonus points, if you will. So for many reasons, buyers don't ever want to talk to sales. They actually don't really like salespeople. I can say hate them, but I don't want to do that. So they dislike salespeople and they usually want to do their own research. So they basically love buying stuff, but they really don't like being sold to. So these 3 categories are about the seller. Buyers want to hear things that are about them, about the buyer, okay? So this is quite important. This actually adds a little bit more legwork for you, but it will get you much further along when you're selling. So when you're looking at you, so it's awareness, consideration, intent, purchase, and repurchase. These are the categories to align your marketing collateral against. So for those that are asking, well, what's marketing collateral in some cases? That's the documentation that you put together that you actually send out to the customer during your outreach. So the first 3 are the big ones, and there are some really big differences between them. The first one is hugely critical because it will prevent you from having tons and tons of unnecessary sales meetings. Here's what you'll do at each stage. So at the awareness stage, customer has symptoms, sort of like they feel that something is wrong, but they don't really know the name of their problem. So for an example, our customers tell us that our shipping times are long and that every day, roughly 2 to 5% of our orders arrive smashed to bits. Who knows what's causing that? It's really, really complex. So if your company was selling, say, a $3,000 sewer cleaning machine, your awareness bicycle marketing would probably be centered around, is this a problem that a sewer cleaning machine would solve? So then you have consideration. This is when the customer decides they have a capital P problem, and they need to determine how they're going to solve it. They've also decided this problem has economic consequences, which means a lot of money will be lost if the problem isn't solved. They haven't chosen the method they're going to solve with. They may go with your proposed method, but we'll need to know why your method delivers the best combination of price, performance, customer satisfaction, and it's kind of important, ego gratification. So please avoid thinking that customers are rational. Customers' ego plays heavily into large purchases. Customers are in most cases pretty irrational. So then we get into intent, commitment. This is the part that most firms skip and something that most salespeople are afraid to ask about. A commitment question sort of looks like this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed is your team to finding a solution to this problem in Q3 of this year? What about by the end of the year? So as a tip, if the answer isn't something in the range of say 9 or 10, the deal will likely not close. So next is marketing collateral. In this phase, helps customers determine what would or would not happen if they were to solve the problem now, later, or never. Usually, some type of math or risk assessment is involved, okay? So then, there is 2 more, I promise we're almost there. So it's purchase. Here, you can use customers from various vertical markets, explaining how they justify their purchase. But remember something really, really important. Customers, as I said, are not rational. I'm going to repeat this again. This is really important. They're not rational at all in most cases. Every purchase needs emotional fuel to push the business or rational justification over the top. And last is repurchase, renewal. This is pretty straightforward. Don't speak on your own behalf. Let the customer speak for you about why they renew. This is basically what makes really good marketing. So next we'll go into a poll, another poll, and I think there's going to be 2 if I'm not mistaken, 2 more. So let's see what the buy cycle you're in. Jay, let's put up that poll. Thank you.
Get your votes in.
Okay, we got 6. We need more.
1 more. And we are done.
All right, great. So the reasons for this could be twofold. One, so it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at this, there are 3 that are in a sort of a buy cycle. So 1 is awareness, 2 are consideration. Most others are saying, I'm not a buyer. So the question here you should ask yourself is, although you may not be buying software, but you're always looking at new solutions to improve your business. For example, it could be acquiring a new CRM system, or it could be something else. So think about this into the future, but we're always at some point or not in one or another type of a buy cycle. Jay, thank you. All right. So how are we doing on time? I think we're good. Okay. So now let's talk about how Cider prospected for the first 5 years of its growth. It isn't to say that it was the right way to prospect, but it kind of kept the company afloat. So number 1 was our personal network. And this is the network, as I mentioned in the first 1 or 2 slides, that was developed during my days, my kind of prior career in finance operations and in gaming. But basically, it cost about $400 per year per team member to use good LinkedIn automation software. So what this is, your network isn't just your past, but it's also the future that you continuously build out. And the easiest one is LinkedIn. So this particular method, meaning automation, leads to personal referrals. So yes, we did have to pay out quite a bit of money, roughly 30 to 40K per year, to folks who referred us this business. But that was about 300 to $500,000 in revenue. So referrals are extremely important, and in most cases, they yield very interesting projects. So yeah, we did have to do about 3 to 4 coffee meetings per day to get those referrals, but that's basically a constant stream of business. So just don't discount that first one. Online advertising, we did probably about $12,000 to $15,000 a year in spend across a variety of different platforms. And we have sourced a few $100,000 throughout the years. Most companies utilize this method in one form or another, but unfortunately, it is somewhat of an unpredictable way of generating leads, and the cost is only rising. So if you're looking at Google AdWords or even LinkedIn, the cost per click is getting significantly more expensive if you're not being very, very specific and narrowing down into a niche. So after 5 years of testing various approaches, we decided to shift the gears, and we actively looked at the outbound email lead gen strategy. That's not to say we never used it. We used it quite passively. But since last September, yes, you may say this is too short of a sample size, but still, since last September, we've done something pretty simple. We've sent about 2,300 really targeted emails per day, and our open rate has been about 28, and you may laugh, 28.3%. So we actually target to the decimal point, and that's quite important because that gets you to these next goals, the targets that you have, and we're pretty specific that way. And this gets us about 0.64, not one, 0.64 meetings per day, which comes out to about 2 qualified leads per week. So in the industry that I'm in, that's quite good. Now, this is about half the speed, and we're about to increase that. So in the process of doubling this to 5,000 emails per day, we recently increased it to 2,000 to 2.4K. So we're getting there.
We're actually at 3,000 as of today. We hit
3,000. Thanks, Adam. So we need 12 such meetings to close a single deal. That's 12 leads to close a single deal. One of our friends actually owns a non-competing IT firm, and he heard about this, so now he pays us to do this for him too. We didn't set out to actually become a sales prospecting firm. That's what other organizations do, and coaching organizations like Centricity. But we've sort of dialed in this into a formula, but specifically to this one tool. So here's what we found is necessary for this. So first, you need a very tight market. So the way we do it is ours is US companies, 80 to about 500 people in size, who are not very good at making software and want it done for them. So specifically apps, CRM systems, ERP, IoT, and web. LinkedIn, we're still using that, and quite actively. We have 2 people on this on a regular basis, and we're reaching out to about 140 people per day combined. So how do you think Jay at Centricity got in touch with me? This is exactly what Jay did. So it was a LinkedIn outreach, very personal, and that's how he and I met. I think it was now it's a year. So let's, Jay, if you will, let's now break out into small groups and discuss how the pandemic actually changed your sales prospecting in 2020 and how it is going to change it for the rest of 2021.
All right, guys, you're going to be two groups of three, one group of four. You see the discussion question there. You are going to have 10 minutes. Let me just be sure I set that up right. You get a 15-second countdown at the end. Have an amazing conversation. And back. Welcome back, everybody. We will keep going.
All right. Hopefully, you all made some decent friends and some interesting insights were found. So, but let's just kind of push forward.
Can I ask a question, Ilya?
Of course.
You said your open rate is in the high 20s. Is that cold emails or people who recognize your name and have been getting emails from you regularly? And it's like I send out 2 or 3 weekly posts and that I get a high open rate on, but that's not a cold email. I'm questioning which it was.
These are cold.
Cold emails.
Yes. We don't know anything about, we know some things about these people, but they don't know us.
And their first time goes. What's your subject line?
We can discuss that.
That is the $1 million question.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of move forward here, and then if we have time at the end for questions, we'll definitely answer some of these. Thanks for the question, Kevin. So here we'll discuss how you can align your email marketing to your customer buy cycle. There are 2 ways you can do this. First is there's a tool, it's called Crunchbase, and it's a product that features what's called intent data. And Kevin, some of this may answer partially your question. This data tells you in general what your prospective customers are looking for. So we've been making campaigns for about 6 months based on this kind of data. So using this intent data, you can make campaigns based on who you think is going to buy what. So for example, if you're selling a solution for people, let's say who are having accounting problems, because they're downloading accounting software white papers according to Crunchbase. Crunchbase's intent data may be an inexpensive and good fit for you. The downside is that you have to keep updating the campaigns every single week. Another product is called ZoomInfo. That does this kind of stuff, but at a much higher price point and with phone validated data. There's a bunch of other things that are included in both of these products, which I just don't have time to go into. This isn't a demo about third-party products, but in general, this is what we use. And this is what is getting us these open rates and these kind of little bit higher than normal statistics. I'm not going to assume that all of you know the difference between inbound and outbound lead gen strategy, but in general terms, inbound strategy is where leads come in via things like SEO, content generation, and the outbound strategy is one where you connect with the customer with hopes of a response. One important thing to keep in mind, though, is that inbound and outbound sales motions have very different conversion rates. Typically, outbound has conversions of 3 to 6%, whereas service businesses can be as high as 30 to maybe 35% when they're inbound. For our team, this averages to about 10% across the board. But once a deal is qualified, it's a whole different story. Odds of the deal closing increase to about 50-50. So once the deal is qualified, it's pretty much game on. And at that point, all we got to do is literally not screw it up, and then we win the deal. So let's do a quick poll on this.
50% conversion rate.
Jay, if you will, thank you. So again, this is inbound versus outbound. A little bit more. All right, and one more.
Here we go.
Cool. So this is quite expected, in that inbound sales are kind of hard ones, because you do have to figure out how to actually organically, it's called organically, reel them in. So that's a longer term game versus outbound sales is a shorter term game. But both is great. So there are 3 people that are using both. All right, so let's move on. Thank you, Jay. So we realized that doing casual.
Databases.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, I should have been on mute.
All right, thank you. So we basically realized that doing casual meetings with people we knew just wasn't enough. And we knew that we had to reach out to strangers we wouldn't normally meet. So the reason is that our collective network was strong, but there was simply a reach that we would never hit if we didn't do email outreach. So we basically hit kind of that wall, that ceiling, and we needed to figure out how to get to that next level. So as of now, our email reach is 10 times that of our web traffic. So say what you will about cold emailing people, but in reality, it does work if you approach it correctly. So for some industries, it's a complete waste of time. So my colleague who's on the call, his name is Adam, met with a market researcher at Centricity recently, who said that online advertising and cold email were nearly useless in this industry. But in our industry, cold email can open doors on deals and quite fast. So my sales team, and this is a kind of an interesting finding that we came to fairly recently. My sales team and I have conflicting philosophies on access to power. So remember that executive decision maker in business deals. Our sales leader, Adam, has been trained in the Sandler and Miller-Hyman methodologies. That's why, Kevin, I was mentioning you before. And
That's why I paid you for the plug.
There we go. And I've had no formal sales training at all, except, sort of the ones knocking on doors and seeing what sticks. So that's kind of my style. I can't say which is actually better, but my method seems to piss fewer people off. And that's kind of a fact. In every deal, there's going to be an economic decision maker. And of course, you want to present directly to this person as often as possible. But you can't spend a lot of time fighting with your main buyer about getting access to this person. Or you can spend this time working on getting the information you need to win the deal instead. So the likely answer is probably somewhere in the middle, somewhere between my take, don't piss the guy off, and Adam's take, you got to have, and by the way, executive decision maker is the EDM. So you got to have that EDM. probably the best way to handle this is try to offer for the EDM to be part of the process instead, not force them to be there, but just invite them to be part of the process and provide input. But don't push so hard as to alienate the buyer. That's really important. If you realize you're stuck with 2 to 3 people on the buying committee, then probe for all of their win criteria, which, by the way, is nearly definitely going to change throughout the course of the deal. It always happens. And why? It's really because decision makers and influencers change often over the course of the deal.
If you ask the question between meetings, like to say, like if you go say a week or 2 weeks between meetings, just say, let's talk about the project success criteria. How has it changed since we last met? You're going to get an answer.
Yeah, okay. And so next, let's do a breakout session. So we're actually going to do this before, but it looks like we have a little bit of time. Jay, if we can do a 5-minute session instead of a full 10, that would be great to discuss this topic here.
All right, hold on. Okay. We've got.
And Jay, if it's challenging to get that reset to 5 minutes, we can just skip it.
Already done. Already
Okay,
done.
thank you.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back, guys. Ilya, why don't you wrap it up?
All right. Thanks, Jay. So, is everybody back?
They are now.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. So, just to kind of wrap it up, a little bit about CyberSoft. We're headquartered in the heart of Silicon Valley. I've lived in the Bay Area for 30 plus years. The company itself, though, spread through 4 continents, 8 countries, multiple time zones, and via 5 delivery centers. So we have centers in US, in California, Colombia, Europe, and we have a small team in Asia. As far as contact details, here they are. Please feel free to reach out either to myself or Adam. We're very receptive to Zoom coffees and general discussions. If we can be of assistance in anything around sales or software development, whether it be bringing up your site up or having questions around SEO or anything like that, we do a lot of that work. We do a lot of custom Salesforce integrations and other CRM development work. So please use us as a resource. Our coffees don't cost a cent.
All right, on behalf of Centricity, I want to thank Ilya. A great presentation, very informative. I think we all learned a few new tips and tricks. For those who are members, keep your eye out in the member portal for the next event coming. With that, thank you all.
And thank you, Ilya.
Thank you.
Thank you.